Hey guys, Keith Keller, Melbourne, Australia, and we're live. Doyle, my mate from Perth, has dropped out. He's having some technical challenges. And what we're doing today is we're talking about what will online events look like in 2021. You know, we in Melbourne have luckily beaten the virus 20 days in a row at zero, but many places in the world have not done that. And we can't really meet our mates and have a hug and go into the city and have coffee as much as we would like. So today we're going to talk all about facilitating virtual events. And I'm trying something a little bit different here. I'll just do a little bit of a decoder and then I'll bring on the guests. I'm sending the file to Twitter, to YouTube and to Facebook simultaneously. That's pretty cool. And I'm using a site called StreamYard, which I love. And it costs $25 a month to send the file to 3 sites, have up to 10 guests, and record for up to 8 hours. And I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, why wouldn't we do this from now on? So I'm really playing with all of the different features. You can have a lovely ticker along the bottom. What will online events look like beyond 2020? We're using the hashtag Wisdom Wednesdays Live, which is in the banner, so you can see that. The guests all get their own name tag. You know, you can have little graphics in the top right-hand corner. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make these events engaging. We're trying to make them fun. Because I tell you, I've been to some really boring events. And I'm going there for my friends, and I'm thinking, look, I want to stay. I really want to do this, but it's so boring. I have to go. Or you turn it on mute, or you go and do something else. So I want this to be engaging. I've got some pattern interrupts, and I've got lots of different guests coming in over the course of the 2-hour period we've got planned for this. You don't have to stay the whole time, just stay as long as you can. There's questions to be had on Facebook. If you're in the Facebook group, you'll get the captions there. You can ask questions there and I can feed it in. It's also live on Twitter, and it's also on YouTube if you want to watch it on YouTube. Haven't yet got LinkedIn Live, and I'm waiting. I've applied 3 times, and Judy Fox, who's coming in at 8:30 actually, is going to talk about how she got 5 million views on LinkedIn, and that's a miracle. So let me start. Doyle obviously will come in a minute when he can. I'm going to start with my very good friend, Irene Larkovetsky. Larkovetsky, have I got it right, Larkovetsky?
Yes, Keith, you've done it right. First time ever. I think you've
She's calling in from Connecticut. She's calling in from Connecticut, and she interviewed Robin Farman Famian, who I'm now calling Robin Flaming Fabulous, because it's just a lot to say. And plus it plays on my Aussie-ness, you know, Aussie Flaming Fabulous, because, you know, that's the thing that you don't get to hear too often, an Aussie guy. So we got someone, you're calling in from San Francisco, aren't you, Robin? Is that where you're at the moment? Yeah.
I'm in Palo Alto, which is about an hour south of San Francisco, the heart of Silicon Valley.
Okay, so what we're doing here is we're really playing out the idea of what will online events look like beyond 2020. We're featuring Robin's wonderful book, Facilitating Virtual Events. She's going to talk about some events she's actually spoken at and what she predicts might occur. We're also going to talk about the difference between virtual events and live streaming, which are 2 very different animals. Looks like Doyle's back in the picture. Let me see if I can get him back in. And we'll adjust that over there to have him in. And now, have you got the delay again, or is it?
It doesn't look like it. Yeah, I refresh Chrome, so seems to be okay now.
Okay. Well, I've just been doing a little bit of a wrap up on the idea of Robin's great book, Facilitating Virtual Events. Before I launch into that and ask Robin some questions, what are your thoughts on the idea of where virtual events and live streaming might go next year?
Well, I think we've really seen a push, and I think it's sort of because of we kind of got that push from COVID and that sort of thing. But I actually wrote an article last night on, you know, the future event, and I compared it to, I don't know if you remember, but what was it, about 30, 40 years ago, there's that Maxell tape cassette guy who sits in that deep chair and he turns on the sound, and the sound from this tape player just kind of blows back his hair.
Yeah. So like Live for Sound with Cliff Richard, 1981.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. But the point is that to me, that was one of the first sort of. It wasn't. It was pseudo digital. Let's get that straight. But it was one of those experiences that we were able to take out from what we were seeing and what we were feeling. And now, 40 years later, we kind of have to go. Well, we need to elevate that whole experience of what we're doing. And to me, a lot of businesses are really typically missing that point. They're not able to create those. As I call it, a remarkable event, a remarkable experience worth remembering. So it's super important that we create these keys and we have all these pieces in place that allow us to do that. We don't want Zoom fatigue. We don't want, just a plain old simple webcam. We want something more extravagant to kind of key in our mind.
We want it a bit more fast and funky, don't we?
Yeah, we want a festival, right? We want something that actually entertains and informs us at the same time simultaneously. So we kind of have to take all these pieces and say, here, how can we actually change what we're actually providing here?
Well, talking about fast and funky, we can add comments now, and the comments in YouTube are working. So hello to Julie Riley. Happy Wednesday. There's a bit of fast and funkiness. We've done a bit of a pattern interrupt there. So with StreamYard, you can have comments. Right, so Julie's listening in on YouTube, and there she's made a comment. So feel free to do that. Obviously, the YouTube comments are working.
Hi, Julie.
Chad, who's just the coolest dude in the world, he actually is calling in and messaging on
wow,
on Facebook.
That's interesting.
Social Media Marketing World just cancelled the 2021 conference, and they're doing it virtually. That in itself is very interesting, isn't it? So.
It is, but look, a lot of businesses, we need to sort of take that risk and say, how do we actually create an event that doesn't encompass people in a single location? And you can do that virtually. You have to do it correctly, right? There is a formula to this, and I'd love to hear what Robin has to think, but you can create these events that have just as much impact and even more because you have a global audience simultaneously. And we're kind of putting our head in the sand if we just say, oh, let's just cancel it. Let's just wait and see. You know what? There's a massive opportunity here for those businesses and conferences and organizations that say, you know what? Let's just do it. All the tools are there.
What do you think, Robin? Let's jump in with this idea of virtual events. What do you think's coming? What do you think the world is going to do in 2021 moving forward? Are we going to see people cancelling real events, or are we going to see people thinking proactively and creating something better or different?
So it is going to be a lot of uneasiness, but I am going to guess starting in March, we're going to start to see a lot more hybrid events, and hybrid events are going to become the norm. So they're saying, at least in the US, the 2 vaccines will hopefully get to normal people to take them if they want by April-ish. And so after that, we're going to start to see a bigger explosion in those in-person events. And I've already been booked at an event that's taking place in late March. That's going to be in person in Texas, by the way. But that's going to be a hybrid. So they're expecting at least 50-50, but they're very, very flexible. And if they need to suddenly move the whole thing online, that is what they are willing to do. And so they are putting a plan in place right now. They're putting that into their contracts. They're putting it into all of their ticket sales, saying, we care about your health and we'd love for you to show up. If you do show up, masks are required, not optional, required. Social distancing, they put the chairs like 6 feet apart, all of that kind of stuff. It's in a big convention center so that they can have a small number of people in a giant space. But they are already planning, if they have to do the entire thing online, they've got a plan for that. And that's what we're going to see. Yep, we're going to see that for 2020. We're going to see a huge number of hybrid events who say to their participants, hey, it might be all virtual, or, we might get lucky and we're going to have that in-person aspect as well. But it's going to be really 50-50. And I don't think this is ever going to go away, because hybrid is amazing, because suddenly people in other countries, like I can't jump on a plane to go to Australia whenever I feel like it. That would be wonderful. But it's difficult living in California. And so now I can actually see your conferences that are going on in Australia, and it's amazing. And so that's not going to go away.
Yeah.
There seems to be a mentality, Keith, that it's like a net zero sum game, right? Like that you can't have both, right?
Yeah.
You either are online or you're on location, right? And the fact is that if anything, this pandemic has forced a lot of businesses to realize that, guess what, you can have both. So you can shift, you can sort of move around, you can sort of understand that this is how it needs to go. Like, we've had that conversation a lot about musicians and bands. You know, they can have one Zoom show or one Eventbrite show that allows them to have their audiences from around the world. They pay a fee and they watch it simultaneously. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Businesses,
let me pick up on that, Doyle, because Robin's done this exact thing, but I want to set up what you've just said. A very good friend of mine, well, a band that I like, they're not my mates, a band called Black Stone Cherry from Kentucky. Brand new album comes out. In the real world, last year, they would have toured that album in a bus driving around America. They came to Melbourne, and we would have all gone to this event, and we would have bought the T-shirt, and we would have bought the album, and this is the old way, right? What they did, and Robin's done something very similar, they did this gig, which was unbelievable, and they did it twice. They did it for a US and Canadian audience with a spillover, and then they did it for a UK and EU audience with a spillover. And so suddenly the whole world is getting to hear about this brand new album from this band they love. And guess what? They sold thousands of albums. They also sold tickets to the event, which was $10. But they also sold lots and lots of albums. They didn't have to tour in the bus. They didn't have to be away from their families. So in a way, the hybrid model can actually have enormous benefits for mental health and lifestyle. So with that in mind, Robin, you did something similar. How did that play out, and what was it like compared to what you might have done?
So I just recently, last week, gave 2 different keynotes at 2 different times in one day. And it was actually really fun. I liked it a lot. This was specifically for hospital CTOs and CIOs. I'm a professional speaker in healthcare typically. And so at like 7 a.m. or 7:30 or something like that, I jumped online. My keynote was from 8 to 8:30, and then I did 15 minutes Q&A. That was live. And that was most likely the East Coast people, the European-based people that were watching that. And then again at like 12:30 or 1 o'clock, I went back on and I did another 30 minutes on artificial intelligence, a completely different keynote, and then another 15 minutes of Q&A. And then going forward for the next 2 weeks, it's available on demand for the people who bought a ticket to that conference, and then they can never see it. And then it just goes away permanently. And so it's building in a lot of things. It's building in that scarcity model, right? It's building in that anticipation, and that if you leave a video up for a long period of time, people are always going to say to themselves, oh, you know what, I'm just going to watch it next week or the next week or the next week. But when you put that time limit on, you either have to catch it live or in the next 2 weeks, or you lose out. There's no way to access it. And that is a really important thing in sales.
Wow. Well, let's pick up on that, because the idea of this hybrid model is, look, we've all spoken at events where we've been into the city and we've spoken, and then we didn't get a recording. No one gets to see it. It's one of my pain points, one of my pet hates. Whereas you spoke at an event, you get the recording. It's up online on demand for a limited period of time, so people who can't come to the gig can access it as well. So in a way, you're reaching a far wider audience. And so the hybrid model might not have occurred to a lot of people, but now people are saying, well, look, while we're doing it, we might as well keep doing it. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. They'll just keep doing it.
Yes. Well, because the demand is there. So once they do the cost value analysis, right? This is a very specific, just easy on your profit and loss statement, some easy financial calculations. You can figure out how much it will cost you to either stream live, which costs sometimes a little bit more, and it's a little bit more difficult to do if you've got 3 cameras that needs real-time editing, but it's very, very doable. Or if you just do like a one stream or put up the content afterwards. Because if you are reaching that audience, you have to understand your own event's goals. Are you monetizing that, right? Why are you reaching that huge audience? How are you monetizing it? But that is a very quick financial analysis, right?
Do you want to pick up on that, Irene? You haven't been part of the conversation.
I want to pick up on everything. Yes, I'm here enjoying myself because being such a fabulous company. So hello, everyone. Robin, thank you so much again for joining these folks over here, because we're having a lot of fun, apparently, up until this point. And now, ta-da, the big moment is coming, Irene's question. So, Robin, you and I, we connected earlier this year, and you mentioned one of the critical points we all can relate to. networking and feeling kind of your best at the event. Those things, of course, disrupted. Okay, we don't feel our best in front of these cameras. Okay, as much as I'm enjoying you guys over there. All right, it's not the same if we would be somewhere, right, and we're having coffee or maybe, right, exchanging some good ideas after the event, you know, during cocktail hour, God forbid. So that said, Robin, I wanted to find out, because in your book, you're mentioning High Fidelity and many other platforms that enable us to network. And in your book, you mentioned how energized you felt after 2.5 hours, right? Actually networking online, if we're talking about hybrid model that actually tilting toward more online than not. Okay, so talk to us about successful networking and this kind of energizing dynamic element to it.
Sure. So the most important thing when you're doing any virtual event, hybrid or not, is that are your participants seen and heard? Because if they're not seen and heard, then all you're doing is providing a Netflix experience, and that's not what people are looking for with an online event. So that networking component is incredibly important. So there's a number of new cutting edge platforms out there. One I used was High Fidelity. So this is so cool. You're not actually on video. And I thought to myself, okay, you know, I'm a girl. I'm used to, you know, dressing up in awesome clothes and going into a party. And it's very much about both what you're talking about, but also looking at, right? And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to this party. I'm not going to know anyone in this networking software. I'm just going to check it out for 10 minutes and hop out and, you know, go watch TV or something. And I went in, and even though no one could see me, all I was a little dot walking around with lots of other little dots on a backdrop, which happened to be someone's backyard and pool. I stayed for 2.5 hours. And I was like, wait a second, no video, no anything. It was just literally a blank canvas of little dots essentially going around. And I was so engaged. I ended up staying for 2.5 hours until I realized I had to go get something to eat because it was like already, you know, whatever, like hours past dinner time. Now, what this is as a little dot, and, you know, you can have a photo on it. So like little Robin dot moves towards a group of people in the software, they get louder, just like you would when you're walking up towards people. But you can still hear, and it's very much stereo. So like, say I've got my group of people that I'm talking to on my left side, I can still hear people on my right side just with the right ear. And it's very muffled, as if they were that far away from me in that same room. And so it's very, very natural. You move from one group to the next, just like you do networking in person. And it's really all about that sound component. And the video, without the video on it, without being like pushed into a Zoom, it's a lot less pressure. Let me tell you, because you can like kind of like hover around as a dot next to a bunch of people and they're having a conversation, just like you do in a networking party in person. And if you don't really care about what they're talking about at that moment, or you heard that story before, say it's your, you know, husband or wife, and you're like, I heard that story before, I don't want to contribute to this. It's not like you go on video and then hop off a video out of a room. You just like, oh, I heard that before, and your dot just goes away and keeps moving towards another group of people, and you can kind of eavesdrop on them to see if you want to join that. And so very, very similar to the same way that you network in person.
I want to pick up on this. You picked up on a really key component with live streaming. Doyle and I did a 14-part episode or series about live streaming, and the number one thing that people said was the fear of video. The number one thing. What if I make a mistake? What if I look stupid? Do I have to get dressed up? Oh no, I've got to have a shave. I've got to wash my hair. I've got to buy a new shirt. And so you're saying that one, if you take that component away, and that you're a dot on a moving board, they can still hear you when you can talk. I'm guessing you can take part in the conversation in an audio format.
Yep, exactly.
So I would never have thought of this, but you found that by taking the video component away and the feeling of not feeling obliged to hang around when you weren't really interested, meant that you could stay longer in places that really interested you, and you had permission to leave if you weren't. Yeah.
And Not only that, but I got into really engrossing conversations. So I walked in, it happens to be a co-founder is my friend Philip Rosedale, who's also the founder of Second Life, if you ever played that game. But so I don't know a lot of his other friends, and it was just a party of all his friends in his backyard, but online. And so I just started talking to people, and I got into really deep conversations about technology, about, something like the love of their life or whatever it was. But it was really incredibly deep conversations with these people that I might have been a little bit more nervous of. Or there was one guy that I knew and I had met previously at a party, and we'd had like maybe a 10 or 15-minute conversation. I'm 5 feet tall and about 88 pounds. He was 6'7" or something, or 6'6", like incredibly tall. And I had a hard time talking to him in person because I literally come up to like look around his belly button.
That's too funny. That's the ultimate leveling field.
It is. It was suddenly
no more physical restrictions.
Yeah, and I had like a deep conversation with him and connected with him in a way that I couldn't do in person because of our massive size difference.
Doyle's asked the question, what was that site called again? Is it highfidelity.com? Do we know? Can we put
it's
that
High Fidelity. I will make sure. I don't think it's probably .com. It's probably .io or something.
Yeah. And do you know the price points of what is it, an industrial strength product, or is it an entry level SaaS or something?
So I haven't used it in about a month and a half, but last time I checked, it was still free. They were still they did their alpha launch earlier this year, and I got to be on their alpha launch, which was so cool. And then they did their beta launch. And so I'm not sure that they're actually charging people yet. They might be, but at least initially they launched as a free product.
Very cool, very cool. And Robin, you mentioned another friend of yours. You have a lot of friends, I noticed you have a lot of friends, and they are doing cool things, okay, as far as I can tell. So another friend of yours who founded the company Custom Box, okay, yes. And they are helping others to engage people and what they do. Please tell us what they do and how they do it.
So this is really cool. Another big trick with your virtual events, are your participants seen and heard, first of all? Yeah. Secondly, how are you adding a critical thinking component or a physical component to their experience? Because those two components are huge, and it will turn it in and change it from a Netflix style people watching passive to a very active engagement, and that will stick in their brains like forever. So the Custom Box Agency, this is so cool. It's a beautiful box, cardboard box that you can have decorated high gloss with like your conference name on it, your speakers, photos, your sponsors' logos. Inside the box, you can choose any of hundreds of things. But what it is the swag bag, but mailed to participants' homes. This is huge for sponsorships. So think about the fact when you get your swag bag at a conference, half the time you leave it in the hotel, you accidentally leave it in the conference room, you lose it in the airport, you can't fit it in, it's heavy, it's kind of hard. And so it doesn't always make it to your home. But when you actually ship the swag to the participants' homes, it's there, like it gets there. And if there's a nice mug in there, people are not throwing that away. They're going to immediately put it into their cabinet or dishwasher. They're not going to throw away any clothing that you give them with the sponsor logos. Books, like people hate throwing away books, especially a hardcover. So you can give them a workbook or just a regular book. And it is a massive advertising opportunity. So you see with my 3 books, I always have a very well thought out descriptive title and my photo on it. This means when I send one of my Patient as CEO or Thought Leader Formula books in one of these boxes, it gets put on their bookcase and they see my photo like every day for the next few years. Who are they going to think of when they want to hire someone who's a professional speaker?
You picked up on a really interesting point there. I never realized this, but if you have swag at the event, the chances of that swag being shipped home are fairly low because you've got to get it in your bag, haven't you? Like if you've got all this swag, you're thinking, oh, that's a cool t-shirt, I'll keep the mug. But geez, I'm not sure I really want all this other stuff. So it just gets left at the event. I've been wondering why that happens, and that's why, because you can't fit it in your bag. But if you actually send it to the person's home, then they've got it. And then suddenly the branding is complete, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. And they're not going to throw it away.
It sets the mood for the event, right? You're like little kid opening up the present, right? And it's all for you, to you, personalized, and you're just anticipating the event because you're already connected with people who thought of you. That's amazing.
It's like that.
That is exactly it.
The
Hey, Jim.
HelloFresh. Oh, hey,
Cheers.
hey, Jim.
Hey,
It's like the
everybody.
HelloFresh. It's like the HelloFresh Jamie Oliver Uber Eats model that we've talked about. Is that you're able to deliver something on demand in advance of your event or conference or whatever, so that then that builds that experience, that builds up that event that's coming up. It's like, hey, this is some stuff that we're going to give you. We're going to send you in advance, right before the conference, whenever. It doesn't really matter. It comes before. You then are able to join that sort of celebration, that festival online on a continuous basis. It's not just a show up, get the stuff, and where do you put it?
So I want to welcome my mate Jim Miskevin from LA. This is a very dynamic process. We've been talking, Jim, about the power of online events. Robin, who lives in Palo Alto, not far from you.
Palo Alto.
Palo Alto.
Palo Alto is in the
Alto
Himalayas.
sounds good too.
I'm definitely not in the Himalayas.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where I'm getting that from. Well,
probably.
So, Jim, I want to pick up on this. We're asking the question: what will events look like in 2020?
Yeah, that's what we want to know.
And I'd be very interested to know what your experience has been so far with and feel free to tell your history of the great fake videos you're doing and the gigs that you do in person. You're a comedian, you're a performer, you're used to being on stage in front of people. That's your bread and butter. Have you noticed that there's a lot of different choices now and a lot of different options, or are people slowly coming on board with this? I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, speaking as a guy from LA who, I've done a fair amount of live performing, and it is a section of my business. I'm a voice actor primarily, and I've done just 30 years of animation and audiobooks and TV voiceovers and impressions and just about everything in the field that you could do. I've done at one time or another. And then I also have a live performing career where I created my own show and doing celebrity impressions and voices, and done that even down in your digs down in Australia. And then I have regular sort of actor gigs like movies and TV where I appear on a show or something like that. So now that aspect of things is starting to come back. People are actually doing shoots. My wife was on a shoot yesterday, but the protocols are formidable. There's just a lot of separation, a lot of extra steps, and a lot of people having to wear the hats of a lot of other departments, I've noticed.
Yeah.
And for the actor, Tamara said, my wife said yesterday, she said, they've kind of taken away everything that's fun about being a guest star on a show. Because you can't hang out at craft service. You can't really talk to many people. You have to keep your mask on a lot, and you have to go back to your room and kind of huddle. And it's just slightly more punitive than it has ever been before.
But do you see the hybrid model working in the entertainment field too? Do you see us as doing more shows like this, like Saturday Night Live? I've been watching variations of this idea. There's a really cool show here called Have You Been Paying Attention?
Great name.
And they take all the bits and pieces from the news, and then they have 5 people on a panel making little comments about what happened in the news last week. And those shows are very dynamic to watch. Do you see maybe a hybrid coming in the entertainment field there? Or
I think so. I think we'll adjust in every way that we can. It's like whether it'll be like whether we're just putting up with it. I'm not very excited. Like if I want to sit down just as a viewer, as a consumer of content, if I want to sit down on a Friday night and watch something with my wife, I'm probably not going to watch something that looks like what we've both been sitting in front of all day long.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
I'm going to be, but on the other hand, it is amazing how adaptable we are. We performers, musicians, everybody who's struggling to still continue to have some kind of interaction with an audience and build some kind of, camaraderie. We will go to all kinds of shifts. I've done a few of these Zoom corporate gigs or events, where I do a fraction of my evening 15 or 20 minutes of material for a green light. And sometimes you can hear people and sometimes you can't. And it's just a silence like the tombs. And, I can't say that I get really, I'm like, wow, I'm really glad we got to this point in human culture.
Yeah.
I'm not very enthusiastic about it. However, I realize that there is a need there, and I enjoy to watch. If someone has something to say, I don't really care if it's on my phone or on YouTube. In person, it's always better. I don't know. Live performing has to come back. But in the meantime, of course, it's completely viable to share and to do hybrid events.
Do you find, Jim, that you're kind of as sort of an entertainer and a comedian and sort of off the cuff kind of stuff? Do you find that when you've done any Zoom events rather, that you're sort of segmented into sort of an intermission type period, or are you kind of like the key speaker type thing? Because we've heard a lot about this Zoom fatigue, and my belief is because we don't sort of stimulate those parts of our brain that are really important. So I've been to some events and organized.
Which parts of the brain are those, by the way?
I'm not sure. This part right here.
You got one of those.
Yeah, I got one of those too. But some of the most remarkable events are the ones that have, it's kind of boring stuff. It's like pitches and stuff like that. But then they bring in some extra sort of intellectual type stuff, like some comedians or some artists or some meditation. Where do you see yourself fitting into all this
Well,
stuff?
mostly I'm used to start things up. I'm kind of a start guy. So I'm for fundraisers or events of one kind or another, I'm generally brought in pretty early, and then they say, okay, take the rest of the night off, and I go off and do my other things. So, but I agree with you. There is a way to pace an event, and this is true of any kind of event, even in the past. How do you begin it? How long do you go on with the awards or whatever? And do you have a comic? And, the ones that overload it and don't think about the sequence of things properly, it could be bad on a Zoom meeting. It could be bad in person. One time I did a corporate gig, and I did a half hour, 40 minutes. And then they brought on another comedian to do almost an hour. And then they did something else. I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have sequenced it this way. It just seems like just a lot. So it's an art. Putting an event together is an art,
I really want to pick up on this exact point because in the marketing world, we have this thing called a pattern interrupt. So I want to give people a very good sense of what you do. This video that you do has blown my mind. And you've had about 1 million views on this video of you not only reading a poem, which you wrote, you do the impressions and you do the deep fake. And so I just wanted to do that pattern interrupt there.
How do we know that that's not real? Like, come
wait
on.
a minute.
It's
how do you know that's really a video at all? It looks just like a thumbnail to me.
Okay, well, there's another version of that with you, doing a Winston Churchill, I'm guessing. And
yes, Winston Churchill consuming nice, healthy carrot.
That is a carrot. I didn't notice that.
The point that I'm really making here, and I really want to pick up on Robin's point here, is that I've brought you in specifically to this event because I have been to some dead boring events which I sort of felt obliged to go to because my friends were running them, and I've been to some other events which I really just hung out on silent to sort of say, look, I've gone, but I'm not participating. What do you think, Jim, are the secrets to an event, like you said, sequencing? Online and in person, what do you think are the sequences that get people engaged and keep them going and keep them being part of it? There's got to be a rule book there, I think.
Well, I guess it's the same thing as in a civil conversation between you and I, for example, Keith, or any of us here. We don't want to just talk to hear a lot of noise come out. We don't want to just say a lot of words. We want to have a purpose. We want to be, we want to express something that we can all kind of agree with. And if we have an agenda or something that we need to get done, like everybody has to vote or everybody has to get their award or somebody has to decide who was the best at whatever. All right, let's get that and get that drama in there too, get that narrative done.
Yeah.
But in a way, sometimes these Zoom meetings are good in that they do tend to cut out a lot of the fluff. Particularly in the beginning, if you remember, we were all kind of like, oh my God, we only have 40 minutes and a half an hour of it looks like this. Now, how do we get, where am I?
Can you hear me? Is it
Can
working?
you hear me? What? Am I here? Are you there?
Can you hear me? Am I on? Just sing
So-
on.
So we've learned to go, okay, well, what is essential? And then let's get out of here while we're still alive. So I don't know. It's just good editing. You just want to cut out all the stuff that doesn't contribute, and keep it warm and keep it real. I think we're very into the genuine these days, right? That's kind of authenticity is really trendy, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jim, I'm a newcomer here, so Keith and Doyle were very kind to let them to co-host. But I'm actually enjoying the fantastic company. Incredibly excited to meet you.
Oh.
Fabulous. Somewhere I've learned that every good joke, it does have a structure, right? And there is a art and science of putting a joke together. Okay,
Right.
There's a setup where we can all relate to, right? And there is a development, and then there is an unexpected moment, right, that make us all laugh. At least that's the logic, right, behind
Exactly.
it. So in the event, do you see this kind of analogy where we building rapport, so people agree in the moment? Then you put some interesting development to the story, and then something excites us and sparkle, and we all feel good about ourselves.
Wow, I think that makes a lot of sense. Is it Irene? Is that how you say your
It's
name?
Irene.
Irene.
I'm in Connecticut. That's how they speak in Connecticut now. This is all.
It's really
If you haven't
really
visited,
getting cold in Connecticut, isn't it?
you should revisit. This is us. From all the old world came here, and that's where we settled in 1700s, 1600s most.
Yeah.
Right. Anyways, I'm from Russia
You never
originally.
lose the accent, right?
Yeah.
That's Irene. Yeah.
Очень приятно.
Oh, perfect. Wow. We're getting somewhere here. Yeah,
That's Vidania.
jokes and dynamics.
But,
I mean,
but
this
I
is
think
fantastic.
that's good. There is a structure of anything to build something. I mean, we see this now. I'm an improv actor, and improv has that very set rules. You wouldn't think it does, but it does, and it has everything to do with the structure of the same kind of structure to build a joke or to build a good event, and it's all based on agreement, right? So we say in improv, yes, comma, and instead of no, comma, but. And that's true of meetings too. A good meeting will go like that too. They'll go, well, what do we need to do? I think we need to do this. Yes, and that's a good idea. Clark, didn't you also think that? Yes, and I think yes. The more yeses you have, the quicker everything goes. The more they go, no, I don't know. Really? I don't.
Wah, wah, wah.
And then it goes, whoa. Suddenly you've got a 3-hour meeting. So events too, I think would definitely benefit. I think, or people putting together events would benefit by thinking about the structure, building it, and building agreement, but also knowing when to break the agreement, like you say, with humor and with challenging people's expectations.
Let me pick up on improv, because I think live streaming and improv have a lot in common. I haven't studied improv, but I think symbolically I might be all right at it. But you said there's a couple of rules: yes and, rather than no but. Just that idea of yes and I've also got an idea. What do you think of this? It keeps the idea moving forward. No but puts up a brick wall and say, well, there's nowhere to go from here. Unless you're disagreeing with me, we can't move forward. So even having some simple rules around the idea of live streaming and virtual events, and I want to bring Robin back in here again, because those two things are fundamentally very different. Live streaming is a 2-hour show, which is pretty free form, and then it goes. But an event might go all day or over a series of days. How do they differ, Robin, especially in the context of what we've just been talking about?
So a live stream is more like that Netflix experience, right? You might have a little bit of interaction, but really what you're doing is that Netflix experience. An actual event should have that interactive component, making sure your participants are seen and heard. They do some critical thinking. They have a physical component, whether that is maybe just typing, but hopefully something else, and feel like that they actually contributed, right? Did them being or watching the event, did that make a difference in anyone else's life, right?
Yeah.
When you're watching a live stream, you're not making a difference in anybody else's life. Was your presence known?
Okay. So you're really, with the idea of a virtual event, you're really into the idea that not only is it a bit of fun at the time, there's a deeper message that you really got to improve people's lives to get them to come and to stay. Otherwise, really, it's a big waste of time.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And in my book, I take people through an exercise on how to price the tickets of your event. And I say, okay, there's two types of events when you are talking about that kind of thing: inspirational and educational. There's a reason a TEDx only costs like $50 or $100 to attend, but Stanford is $50,000 a year. One is an educational experience where people are actually learning something they can apply to their daily lives or their work to make more money or to improve their lives.
It comes at a premium. A premium.
Right.
You've got to pay more for that.
Exactly. But like a TEDx, they're always inspirational. You go, you might feel a little good. That was a great, few hours of watching some inspirational talks, but it didn't change your life. You had no action items when you went back to your desk on Monday morning. It didn't help your personal life. It does nothing. It's just like watching a TV show. It was fun while it lasted, but it didn't have any impact on your life.
Yeah. And does that play out in your field of healthcare keynotes? How does that play out specifically with what you do? Healthcare is a big area right at the moment. So what's going on in that space as it relates to what we've been talking about?
For the most part, healthcare events that are for industry, right? Not maybe like a TEDx that's a healthcare focused or, a nice free event for the public. But healthcare industry events, there's always an educational component. And so, for instance, when I'm doing a keynote, whether it's 30 minutes or 60 minutes, I will go over like 3 points to keep in mind, something like how a provider can be in their patient's life on a daily basis by leveraging, and then I'll get into what it is. But like I'll give them some action items or takeaways at the very beginning of the keynote, and then I will make those 3 points throughout the entire keynote, no matter how long it is. And then at the end, I give them action items. And most of the time on my in-person events, it's really cool. I'll have a slide that has like 5 or 6 action items. Add AI voice component to your hospital rooms, like something very specific depending on the audience. And I say, we're not going over those. This is a summary slide for you guys. It's there so you can go ahead and take a photo right now so you remember what to do on Monday morning. And I'm telling you, sometimes I'll have audiences of 3,000 or 4,000 people, and you see 50% of them are like putting up their phone and taking a picture of that summary slide. That gives them those exact action items that they can execute on when they get back to the office on Monday. And
this is a very, very key point. Let me pick up on what you've just said there. You're building this in. You're building this into the event. The psychology behind that. And so it's a pattern interrupt. You've done it on purpose to go, hey, I know I've been talking and I'm rambling on a bit, but here's something you have to do right now. Bang. Get your phone out. Stop. Wake up. Stand up and take this photo. Right there, you've done this sort of action item. It worked, and you've actually strategically, to pick up on Irene's idea, you've strategically put that in there, not randomized. You specific. I said it's one of the best sort of action items of your whole presentation, isn't it?
Yes. Well, and throughout, I actually make sure I build in that interactive component. And whether it's virtual or it's in person, I have at least 3 to 5 questions I ask the audience. Say, how many people here have a baseline on their blood pressure? Raise your hands. And, most of the audience does. And I use that trick to make sure that it's a question that most people are going to say yes to. And then I say, do you have, cholesterol? And then I say brain health, and nobody raises their hand. And the whole entire audience has that exact same experience. Like, oh, wait, I don't have it, and no one else has their brain health, baseline. And really consciously putting those things in.
Can you do something similar to that, Jim, with live presentations? Do you sort of sometimes bait the audience to get a bit of a reaction when you're doing a show?
Oh, I love to interact with audiences directly. Yeah, I have several pieces that I do where I wander into the audience. I used to do a lot of man on the street interviews for commercials, advertisements in the United States. And so I feel very comfortable talking to strangers.
Wow.
Because I know that if you ask the right questions, a marvelous specificity will emerge that you never would have anticipated. So I like to go and do things. And I think too, for the audience, it makes them feel a little bit like, hey, this is really happening. Wait a minute, that guy's talking. Hey, he's talking to Clark. Hey, I wonder what Clark's going to say. I didn't know Clark was so funny. Listen, look at this.
Look at him. Look at him. Jeez, I'm glad it's not me.
This is involvement. I want to add, right?
Those questions.
This is not just audience engagement. This is all the audience involvement. And we love being part of the show, part of the keynote, and part of the event. So all I hear, event here as well as keynote, it's a play. It's a play. You have to build the anticipation. You have to build the dynamic in, and then any improv you do in the middle, right? That comes naturally because it's very well prepared.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that today then, Jim and Robin? Like, how do you create sort of that extra level of man on the street type?
Well, we did. It's hard, but I did it just the other night, and I do a thing where I do a kind of a tall tale, telling an American tall tale. And I get a Western character and put on a hat, and the conceit is that every now and then in telling this story, I will be searching for a word, and I'll go like this. And at that point, I want people to go in the chat and fill in the word that I need, and then I'll integrate that word very quickly. But it's tricky because you have to see. Suddenly, if you have a lot of people, you get this many chats. All of a sudden, you're like, what was the first? I don't know. It's gone. So. That's all. I haven't solved it, but that's one way that we're doing it.
Well, look, picking up on what you've just said there, Jim, we're using today a site called StreamYard. We're going to work our way through a couple of different ones. But with this particular site, we're sending it to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And people who are watching the show on those sites can comment. So exactly what you're saying. Geez, what is the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Can you help me out? Can you put something in the comments there?
But then how do I see that though? Where does that pop up? It doesn't pop up.
That won't show up for you as a guest, but if you run it as a panel operator, and I can, as an example.
Yeah, I'm seeing the comments here. There's a lot of comments here, so maybe I could do it like that. Yeah,
that's right. So there's a lot. If you're watching on Facebook, so when you were talking about yes and Doyle went and in the comments on Facebook,
yes and is a great connector.
That comment. So then suddenly you can say, one, thanks Doyle to go into the trouble of making that. Second of all, that reminds me of another time when I was doing this. So the reason why this show is evolved and will keep evolving is that we have all been to very, very, very boring shows, and I don't want to go to them and be part of them.
Not including this one, right, Keith?
Well, hopefully not. And here comes Jessica.
This is only the most recent.
Well, I'd be pretty hard pressed if I'm bored with my own content. But the point is that we're not miracle workers, and I'm working the system, and we've got the professionals here. Robin's written a book about this. Jim does this all day. We're going to be learning some really major tricks of the trade. What do you guys think, Doyle?
When you guys ever sleep?
What's a good wrap up there? I actually think we could probably go to the last question, which is, what would you like to see happen in 2021? What do you think, Robin? You've been on a while. I want to give you permission to leave if you need to. You don't have to, but if you need to, I want to give people permission to leave at symbolic moments. What do you think should or could happen in 2021 that you've learnt this year that you'd like to see more of?
More of the networking. And so between March and now, people were really just trying to put on those Netflix stories, essentially just a Zoom or one of the easy event software, put on a bunch of content, maybe have like 15 minutes for networking in the software, and then, the event's over. People are going to either, if it doesn't go directly to the hybrid events and it mostly stays still virtual, people will start to do more of the networking component, more of the group activities and the breakout sessions where people can do some critical thinking exercises in a group and replace networking with that type of fun activity.
Yeah. What do you think, Jim?
Well, barring a complete return to normal, which would be my ultimate desire. Some way to, from the performer viewpoint, some way to actually in comfortably in real time have that communication with the audience again. Performers really need it. It actually tells you so much about how you're doing, how they're doing, what to proceed with, what to omit, and are you getting the result that you're trying to get? Are you making people happy? Are they laughing? I mean, if you can't hear laughter and you're a comedian, it's just it's really tough. No one is going to type in ha 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 ha.
It's funny you say that, Jim, because in the early days, like in March and April, where you had like Stephen Colbert, and you're listening to the shows and you can't hear, even as an audience, you can't hear that laugh track, and it's like, that was funny. Like, am I supposed to laugh out loud or what? Like, it was
funny?
just surreal.
Yeah. It's very surreal. It's still, weird. It's weird. It takes some getting used to. So, I mean, they've taken in Los Angeles the Laker games, the basketball games, and they've put a digital grandstand there with full of actual people in more or less real time who are responding to the excitement of the game. So that is obviously, probably cost prohibitive for most people. But if there's some way to make that happen on your laptop, where I could see, a couple hundred little tiny icons like this, and I can hear them going, "Hi," and it's not interrupting things. I mean, that's a thing to figure out. It's
this goes part of the way toward
audience
emojis, and there's Jessica there with, and she's coming on in a minute. I want to pick up on this, Doyle, because we've been exploring a very good alternative to live stream StreamYard called Zoom, which obviously everyone's heard of, but it has many add-ons. One of which is a Zoom Room, which is exactly what we've been alluding to here, and also the webinar feature. Now, those two things are the exact polar opposite of each other. The Zoom Room is a group of people in a room chatting like this. A webinar feature is a chat room, which is a box. I'd like to hear, Doyle, what you think of those two options as a live streaming process or an event making process. Do you think have you seen them working? Have you seen them in operation?
Yeah, I prefer to work in a parallelogram though, instead of just a box or a rectangle.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
No, just kidding.
What about a dodecahedron?
Dodecahedron, I love that. That's going to be my new shape. Look, there's a huge difference between those, and honestly, I find that there is like this barrier between them, where you go from like a Zoom room where you can connect and talk and go, speak with smaller groups kind of thing, where you are doing that networking stuff, to a webinar where you're able to isolate and present, but you can't communicate with the audience. So it's kind of like dead air. You're just talking to yourself, which obviously doesn't always work that well. So it's, you kind of have to decide. I don't think we have, there are some Hopin and there's some conference tools that sort of allow an integration of that, which is fantastic. So we're seeing more and more of that, but that needs to change, because we need to have that feedback from the audience. We need to sort of understand that
it's essential.
That was funny. It's totally essential.
What do you think, Irene? Have you seen some tools?
I think, that speakers, presenters, performers, right? They will have to change the way they approach the audience, because I'm as audience member, I am tired of being taught. I'm tired to being kind of used as a, filler in the seat. Okay, I do want to show I'm here. Yes, I'm alive. And yes, at comedy show, it's a little bit easier to say ha 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 in person than in a business webinar to make notes in silence. I don't want to be making notes anymore. I've done them enough. No more notes. Okay, for webinars, for something, Doyle, professions that you deliver, and I attended one, the great one last week, was it? So more involving, asking people questions and getting that feedback immediately. Thanks to technology, we can do it. We don't have to run around the audience with microphone anymore, all right? But the important part is, yes, we want to connect more than ever nowadays, more than ever. So with that, I would conclude an impassioned speech about people, connectedness, and feeling fun together. That's all.
Nice.
I haven't heard of this one. Julia, has anyone heard of this one? Socio? Has anyone heard of this?
Sounds interesting.
Socio.
I
haven't followed that path.
I've got
Hello, how are you?
Yeah.
Now look at this. This really is the Brady Bunch moment. Look at this. It's the Brady Bunch moment.
Sorry, Kate, I'm gonna leave a little room for
go?
yes.
Okay.
I've gotta go. But it's been a great time. Lovely meeting all of you.
So much.
Yeah, thank you
Thanks
so much.
Very much. Great talking to you.
Jim, we'll see you later.
See you later. Let's figure out how to get out of here.
There's no door. Where's the door?
So,
Where's the
What we've
stage
got here
left?
is we've had 5, we could have 6, and now we've got 4. And what we've got Jessica Phillips, Jessica with a K.
That's right.
And the thing that I'm really fascinated by is we've been chatting about different sites, and thanks for making the comments. I'm guessing you've done some bit of the, you've seen some of the show, so you know where we're up to. But the thing that's really interesting is, well, what's going to happen? Well, I'll ask you these questions as well, but I think let's pick up on and roll the theme along. We've talked about Zoom. We've talked about StreamYard. Julie, thank you, Julie, has just mentioned Socio.
Hey, Julia.
Doyle and I have been experimenting with a site called Remo, which I think gets very, very close.
Yeah.
To
I actually used a different one. I actually used one called runtheworld.today because I host an in-person event like many. We had a pivot this year, and I didn't want to have our actual the same type of conference that I was planning on having, and doing that, just putting it online and calling it a day. Instead, we had to like rethink it, because there are some events that just probably won't work, right? Like online, the same way that they were intended in person. So we did a masterclass instead, and took the focus that we knew everybody wanted to learn about and did it online. And we used this app called runtheworld.today. And it sounds like Zoom's kind of catching up by what you guys have said with adding in the rooms. But what this app did, and what it does, I should say, that I really loved, is that one, you would go live, right? Similar to like a Zoom or a GoToWebinar, and you could have different people on. But the magic of it was that anyone, like if you wanted to bring them in to ask, if they wanted to ask a question, they could just raise their hand and you would bring them in instantly without having to like send a link and all that and give them approval. And they had different types of talks that you could do. So you could set up like a fireside chat, where it would be like a little bit more intimate and be able to interchange people. They would have like a cocktail networking hour portion of the app where you'd answer a couple of questions, and then they would pair you up with kind of speed round with people that were there automatically, like kind of a speed networking, and different things like that were built in to that app. So I really liked that in order to kind of keep the engagement, because I firmly believe like the magic honestly happens before and after an event, more than like during it. So it even had some things built in where you could follow each other, learn more about each person that was attending, and get connected with all the attendees, to not just kind of showing up to hear the presentation. So,
well, as a relationship marketer, I'd imagine the networking is the key component for you, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
It's not the knowledge. You can get the knowledge on YouTube and any given book you bought at any number of shops in the city, if you can indeed go to the city. But the point is that the networking is the part you can't do.
Right.
And so this site called runtheworld.today, it's the best URL I've ever heard of my whole life.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like some of the founders, some of the early developers of Facebook. One of the founders still works there at Facebook, but they pivoted and built this app, and yeah, it's amazing. It's just now starting, growing. Do
you know the price points? Is it entry level, or is it a pretty solid offering?
Yeah, so it started free, and then the paid version to get like recordings, if you want to download the recordings after, as well as they have some bits for sponsors. If you have an event that you're having sponsorships for, and they have like a virtual vendors kind of section for the sponsors, and that runs about $500 a month. So you can do it one time, right? And it's just $500 for your event, or you can, pay that monthly fee if that's your jam, and use this as your tool for doing the events like that.
They have a thing called Cocktail Party, which looks like allows you to sort of have that conversation. So
it's that speed networking.
That's cool.
What do you think, Irene? We've been talking.
Hello, Jessica. So nice to meet you. Hi. I haven't been to these fun events where you have social basically element to it. But Keith, I remember you run a poll. You're always running those polls, okay? And they are tremendous. Okay, love them. So you run this poll I don't know, months ago or so, where with all the work that's going on, and I was putting big events for IBM for many of years, so I know, the budget, I know how many people, teams, huge universe of putting the big event together, right? But in that poll that Keith ran, people agreed that they don't care about speakers. They don't care about the content.
Yeah, that's not why I go to events either, right? Like you said,
atmosphere, which
vibe.
Exactly, and that is big learning, I think, for everyone, because again, we can learn on Netflix and YouTube, right? But
Exactly.
And Robin mentioned that this is often a Netflix type experience. But one thing I want to specifically talk about, which is very unique to Jessica on this call at this time, is that there's an Agora Pulse Summit going on right now, which you're at, and also my friend in the UK, Trisha. So tell me about how they did it and what you liked about what happened there, because as a bit of a decoder, you can watch the event today, but it's also on demand for a month. So tell me about that.
Yeah, and so this is the second summit I've done with Agora Pulse, but it's very similar to others that I've spoke at this year. So like Content Marketing World and Inbound and ManyChats event. And a lot of them have had you pre-record your presentation. And so we've all been talking about the interactive, component of if we're doing it live, which that's awesome, right? You can do it live, you can include the audience, you can ask them questions and bring their comments on screen. It's completely different when you're pre-recording. Hey, Judy, I love you. So, but it's completely different when you're pre-recording your presentation because you don't hear that feedback. And I heard the comedian that was on saying you don't get to hear the ha-has, right? So the part that's different, and then what I love about the events and how they ran it. So the part that's different, you're pre-recording it. So you have to go in and knowing that, hey, you can't seem rehearsed or scripted. You have to show up in a way that's going to deliver your message in a way that's not going to bore someone. It can't just be a talking head. You either have to change it with the slides, or if you're really kind of going deep dive into how to do something, it's probably best to do a screen share. And so I think it's very wise of the event organizers that they strategically picked the speakers and the topics to kind of match up with how they're going to show up and deliver the message. That's one, right? Like not just pick all the people that they knew. Like as Irene said, it's not about the speakers. That's not why people are really showing up. They're showing up for the networking and the knowledge if they're going to continue to watch it, but matching the speakers up with how they're going to deliver the message. That's one. The second part is that they have, the magic before, during, and after the event that's going on. So they set up, okay, we're going to have the session go live, but then we will do a live Q&A after, so attendees can come in and ask their feedback questions. We're also going to bring in a Facebook group, and HubSpot had their own app. Of course, they had a bigger budget because they were charging for the event, where you can network with the attendees there, as well as, ask questions to the speaker. And then the other part of it that I really, really liked is that the communication level, because if you're hosting an online event and you are wanting to get the attendance of people that are showing up and kind of taking it serious because they want to be involved with others that are being involved, is that they are encouraging and constantly communicating, here's our event, here's how you can show up, here's how you want to participate, giving kind of that swipe copy, if you will, to get people to share and engage. They were rewarding engagement. So who was tweeting, the top of the Twitter boards, who was driving in the most attendees, even though the event was free, and rewarding that, and rewarding participation, as well as responding to the engagement that they were getting. So it was a constant engagement event that was building this sense of community, because as you said, it's live. It was live today, so my session was already complete. But I have to understand also that it doesn't mean that it's done. So attendees will still potentially be watching this up to 30 days after. So you have to stay engaged, and the conference organizers like Agora Pulse does a fantastic job of relationship marketing. They're keeping the speakers informed of that, the community informed of that, and also showing up to respond to make sure that everyone knows that even though you watched it later, you're still part of this event and part of this community.
Let me pick up what you've said there, because I joined the Agora Pulse Facebook group. It's got 4,000 very active members.
Yeah.
So there's 4,000 people that are either a user of the Agora Pulse software or interested in this concept. So you've instantly got something in common with everyone in the group.
Mhm.
And suddenly there's this summit that they're running it around. The event goes live, which you've pre-recorded, but then you've got a component afterwards. The reason why I'm interested in this is that there's really two questions at any given time with an event. What do the participants think? And what's in it for the company? Because Irene works with big companies that do event for their new corporate products. So what's in it for a company to run an event like this? Do they get potential sales, or do they get a chance to
relationships? Yeah, relationships. The event was free, and it wasn't free for the attendees, not free for the organization, right? I'm sure they're spending man, woman power putting it on, right? Their own resources, building the website, taking the videos, uploading them, doing all the things, right? But that's the thing with events. Events they're so discounted right now, and most people will sign up for them only if they are at a price point that makes sense, because there's so many of them. But the key is building the relationships that are there. They're joining in because they see a friend that's there, or they see a topic that's going to matter to them. And what's in it for the brand is that they're building this sense of community. That is going to be the name of the game for all companies, is building the sense of belonging over buying, right? Like, so it's not focused on buying, it's focused on belonging. And you'll notice that there's two kinds of people in that group. It's super fans of Agora Pulse and people that haven't bought in yet, honestly, because their community is that strong, advocating for them, because they know that Agora Pulse is showing up in a way that's bringing information and tools and listening to show that they do care, and they have this buy-in to their community that's bought into them. And I think all brands can kind of take note of that. The ones that are doing it really well is, we're going to give you more value than what you're paying us for. They're continuing to keep people loyal to them.
I want you to pick up on this, Irene, because this is one of the fundamental reasons we're running events like this. We want to teach people to run these, but we also want to run them. And what do you think the use case is for an event like Agora Pulse Summit, which is called the Social Pulse Summit, if you want to do that hashtag, Social Pulse Summit? What do you think, Irene, is the use case for an event like that? Free for the participant, but obviously some cost to the organization.
Yeah, there are a couple of types of events, what Robin mentioned earlier, okay? And that's for one captive audience, meaning that for tech company running for clients and partners, okay? So those people almost don't need to be convinced to get together, because they're already your users. They want to hear about new updates, upgrades. They want to hear your big launches, because it's critical for what they do day to day. All right. And of course, you want to grow your audience, because, right, there is, of course, this demand generation component there. So that's why these big shows, they cost a lot, because it costs a lot to acquire new clients. We know that, especially if it's business to business with deal size, maybe multi-million dollars. So all I'm saying, this is a huge industry, so it's not going to go anywhere, right? It's going to transforming now, which is wonderful. So use case for larger ones, yes, it will still be big teams, big productions, because you have to carry this kind of flag forward, and those events are expensive to attend. It could be $3,000 still, right? It could be 2-3. That's like huge chunks out there. At the same time, if you're not a big tech company with huge market presence, there is a wonderful use cases for you, because you still want to talk to people who might be remotely interested in what you do. And that's where this digital component becomes really crucial, because you need to run pre-event demand drive too. You need to be very, very, I would say, on your toes during the event, because these are the people who trusted you. Maybe you're not huge brand yet, but you building new friendship, new relationship. Because sometimes big guys don't have to do that. They're kind of confident that
they already have the audience. You've often said that they already have the audience.
So
what
it's really.
What do you think, Doyle?
Well, I'm curious to know if there's sort of been a financial push for a lot of businesses to kind of put all their chips in the digital space like Agora, or are they still going to run, sort of the traditional marketing events and that sort of thing? Is there a dividend of going live, going virtual, whatever the case, whatever you want to call it, are they sort of reallocating that budget to say, let's create a massive event online because we have the budget? Or is it, oh, well, let's try this and see if we actually get it. It's going to cost us whatever, $1,000, $2,000 for people to attend for free, but the relationship, the long-term relationship is more what they're looking for?
Yeah, because it reduces churn and it grows their repeat referral business, because more people are talking about them online, and it creates this thing called attention, which everyone is craving for, especially when it comes to online marketing. So I feel like that's the payoff for them. And even though we had a free event, we still got sponsors. So I didn't do my live event that I normally do in person, called our social media week event, but I did a masterclass instead. And even though we offered that for free, we still had sponsorships that came in. So that was like the revenue. But the key was that I do it for our clients anyway, because I have a marketing agency. So I do it for the clients to kind of understand what's coming into marketing and hear from other leaders that are kind of saying the same thing, as well as, attracting in another audience. And I feel like many brands are thinking the same. I don't think it can ever possibly be as great as an in-person event. It's just kind of where we're at today, So kind of working with what you got, I guess.
Look, I want to pick up on what a couple of things you've said there. One is this idea of churn, this idea that if you already have an active community of users, and Irene talks about this a lot, the pre-existing audience, if you honor that rather than chasing new people, if you say, look, we've already got you, you're using this, and this is an event for you. Yep. This is an event to honor the fact that you are a power user of our product, and we thank you for that. And we're putting on a free event to keep you in the loop of what's coming, so that you feel a part of this community. That the term is churn, but it means that people will stay with you, and the chances of people dropping out of the system simply based on lack of activity is hugely reduced, because they feel that, hey, this is a cool product. This is why I love this product. This is why I pay my such and such per month, because I dig them and they're looking after me. And so that in itself is a use case for a site that already has existing clients, isn't it?
That's the case. I think the sales funnel is dead at this point, honestly. Like, if we look at it, like, our best leads have always come from word of mouth, but now with online, it's word of mouth, right? And looking at stats, it shows that 80% of a brand's traffic right now is coming from what's called dark social, meaning that it's hard for a brand to track. They can't, unless they're using a third-party tool, of where the leads are coming into their website, because they're starting in private niche communities like this. Your group is private. So if we're mentioning Run the World and I put it in the chat and somebody clicks on it and goes to that site, they don't see, where that started from. So they can't attribute it. So people are talking about a brand in private communities. We're talking about Agora Plus. We're talking about mentioning all these companies. And that's the key. So when brands focus on creating this momentum of taking their clients and turning them into advocates, their team members into evangelists, and focusing on their culture, right? And building community with other companies, to create collaborators where they're collaborating with them, then this momentum starts happening where others want in on it because of the sense of belonging, and they're going to stick with you longer. So diving in and focusing your efforts on more of a client delight versus a new sales acquisition will actually grow your business more that way, because it's less to keep a customer than it is to acquire one, and customers that stay with you longer are ones that are going to spend more anyway. So it makes sense, and it helps build that sustainable organic growth over time.
I'm going to do a bit of a pattern interrupt here. I've been waiting for a time to share this exact graphic, and you've just given me that opportunity.
Here is my love language here, relationship marketing. Yeah.
This is it. You talked about client delight, and sorry you can't see me. I'm doing a pattern interrupt. I'm giving you just the graphic. If you delight your customers, they're going to tell their friends, and that's the best type of referral, isn't it? It's the absolute best type of referral, isn't it?
Well, that's the whole point of building that community and having those events, I believe, that can actually allow you to enable that process, to allow people to connect over a common app or understanding or culture or whatever the case may be. So it's really can be quite powerful. But
And is it still
only
true
for those who
that,
recognize it.
Is it still true, Doyle and Jessica and Irene? Is it still true that it costs a lot less to keep a client than to get a new one? Is that still a factually provable accounting strategy?
Well, I've never run the math, but you'd have to assume that, right?
Yeah, it's certainly a paradigm that we've been taught, isn't it?
Yeah, but if you look at how much you expend today, or how much say Agora Pulse spent to put on that big event, like we're talking, I don't know, maybe a 100K type event, maybe not. I haven't actually seen it, but the fact is that's a huge investment. So they're looking at it long term. They're not looking at it, okay, well, what's the ROI on this? We understand that there is an ROI, but it is more subtle. It's more sort of creating that community, creating that foundation that people can come and connect and talk about it as well, which is good.
And sometimes the objective is awareness, right? You invest so people in the market are aware who you are, because there's so many, again, offerings, products right now. Sometimes you're not going to get return overnight, right? So that's yes, it's.
That brings up my point. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Jessica.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it brings up the point, though, in terms of, can your average business have an Agora Pulse type event, right? I would say no. So how do they actually do it? How do they combine those resources for, say, the small business to be able to have, maybe not the exact experience, but something similar? Like, what should they be doing to be able to do that, to be able to have that experience, even if it is sort of an introductory level?
Yeah, and I mean, something like StreamYard, right? Like, I mean, it's super affordable and they can do it live, just like how this is being done now, I think, a different level, right? Because I'm sure if they didn't have as much of a budget, they probably have less of attendees. But just to echo back to what you said, Doyle and Irene, both on, costing less to keep a customer, as well as Irene's comment on, building awareness. That's just it, right? Like you're investing not in just keeping them, but continuing to build advocacy. And that's the key. So it's not just you speaking now. When you're investing back in your clients, not only are you keeping them, but now you're equipping them to be able to share your message on, because that's where the growth and the momentum is going to continue to come from. So you're not continuing to spend money, to go through all the stages, especially if you're a tech company, right? Like, people don't just leave and want to have that pain of the transition. But if they can hear from others speaking, when it's coming from someone else advocating, this solved my pain point, and I'm just like you, versus the company trying to convince you. Nobody wants to be sold, but people do want to feel like they're making a wise decision. So when they hear from peers, and now peers used loosely because we consider other people that are leaving reviews or sharing comments, even if we don't know them, personally, that's our peer, they're like us, and saying positive things, we're going to be more amped to believe it. It shortens that sales cycle. It's going to help you grow more sales over time anyway, at a less expensive rate.
And let's not forget about very basic. Okay, we're talking a lot about how to make event interesting, right? How to keep the attention, get the attention, and keep the attention. Let's not forget about simple word value. Okay, if you say something that's of value to people, they will stick around no matter how big is your budget. Okay, but if you have nothing to say, if you are not adding anything, even if it's entertainment, I mean, not even, but if it's just entertainment, beautiful, it's a value. If you made somebody's day a little brighter, that's a value, and it doesn't come with a big budget. All right, so let's not forget the essence why we at the event. It's supposed to be event because something is happening. It's not because we got the budget, we have to spend it. It's an event.
Well, picking up on that, what do you think are the top tips for making an event fun and engaging? You've been to quite a few with Jessica. You run them yourself. What are you finding are the key elements?
Personalization, honestly, just echoing everything that Irene just said. I mean, yes, are the lights cool and the music? And if you have like this fancy like background, absolutely, like that looks cool. But if you don't feel like you're being seen or heard or understood and that kind of value, then you're still not going to have as great of an experience as if you show up and someone is planning little delight moments that are going to make you feel like you're part of this community. So the things I love are, the emails, when the company that's running the events getting involved and responding back to people, or doing challenges, or even like little personalized notes. I actually just was doing an Instagram story on this $6 pair of earrings. It's not an event, but still related. $6 pair of earrings that my daughter wanted for Christmas on this app. And it was like, it's called Deepak or something like that, but it was kind of like an Etsy kind of store, right? But this woman sent me her cute little cardboard made little card that had like this personalized message in it, right? That to say thank you. And it was wrapped up in tissue paper and had all these little cute little confetti pieces in it. I went right back to the store and bought more because of that kind of moment. They're exchanging more value than I paid, made me feel important by the little extra thing that they did. And I think that's the key that we all need to think about, is like, how can we give more value than what's being exchanged? People expect us to give back what we've paid for, but when they can, show a little bit more and we feel like we got more out of it, then that's where the magic can happen.
Are we maybe just expecting extra value then? Like, is that shift there? It's like,
I think
it's not good enough to just send me your product. I want to receive the product plus something else. Like, I
think that's what's going to make people stand out. I don't think anybody expects it, but I think that's what they're going to remember, and that's what's going to keep them loyal. So I don't think people expect it. If I order something, okay, give me my product, that's great. But if I see somebody that has a cheaper price than you for the same kind of thing, then I'm not going to stay loyal. But if you show me that you care and pay attention, I'm going to pay attention to you. So it's not that you have to, it's that you should, because that's what's going to keep people loyal and wanting to share your message on.
So how would you deliver extra value for more of like your traditional service type business as opposed to
I'm so glad you asked that, because I just did a video on this too. And what we do, like, because we work with a lot of industries, so like boring industries, I'm talking like Mr. Manhole that literally has a tool that cuts a hole in the ground to repair manholes. Not sexy at all, right? So like at all, a lot different than
it's a whole to a different
confetti
universe. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of fun. I find it exciting, but not many others do. So one is like we have a group that were created just for the people that purchased it. So we're building into his existing audience, right? And giving them resources to help them promote themselves. But the other thing for any service company is it doesn't take a lot to send a personalized response back. Video email is huge, where you can just do a quick video email that shows, thanks or gratitude for what you're doing. Or even if you just have a CRM in place to where I'm not redundantly saying the same thing again and again, to a company when I'm working with them, repeating it, just showing that a company is taking that kind of care. So if you have a huge brand and you're working with lots of clients, even if you just have a CRM, so when you're working with somebody and you're being passed on, that they can say, hey, I see you've been with us here, you've had this issue, whatever, like those kinds of elements, just any kind of personalization, I think would be key. And then any kind of like, even if it's a free training or a free whatever that you're giving to them to show that little bit extra, I think would go a long way, and does go a long way.
Now we've got the Wonder Twins.
Judy.
Jessica and Judy.
I was just saying, I can't follow Jessica.
Yes, you can, whatever. You're on.
Well, before
Judy's been to my event a few times.
I just want to pick up on the last question. That is, what of the things you've seen this year, including the Agora Pulse event and all these things, what would you like to see more of in 2021 in the current context? Maybe in an ideal situation, but given the reality of what we're experiencing, what would you like to see more of, Jessica, in 2021?
Yeah, in 2021, I would love to see more brands social listening first. So creating like Agora Pulse, again, I'm giving them shout outs because they just are amazing at this. They've done a lot of social listening first. So this is like the third event that I know of that they've put on that are all based around feedback of what people want to hear. And they're not showing up with the approach to sell. They're showing up with the approach to serve. So I think brands can do a lot of social listening, building a community. So they built theirs on Facebook. It's really easy to do a Facebook group where you can build and give back and nurture the community, not just when the event's happening, but all the time, as well as brands kind of coming together, that collaboration to where they can join forces and support others. So ideally, of course, I'd love things to go back to normal, but I think we've learned a lot in 2020, and it's actually helped accelerate rather quickly what have taken 3 to 5 years, and where brands would get realizing that, okay, today we need speed, accessibility, and ease of use for our customers. And we need to adapt that into our websites, into our social, and into everything that we're doing in order to maintain relationships and grow those relationships over time. So whatever that looks like for your industry, I think that's what you should incorporate into 2021.
Well, one thing I want to pick up on specifically, we've just heard from Chad that social media marketing world may not go ahead in physical reality. I don't know if you've heard that story or if you have an opinion on it, but are you seeing real events that you will love and used to look forward to going to not going ahead? And what are you doing instead?
Yeah, so I don't know what that's going to look like. So I know for me, social media marketing world, I love it. It honestly, that's the one event that inspired. I've been to every single one that they've had. It was the one that inspired me to launch my event. That's where I've met the lovely, amazing people like Judy and others that I've been able to build relationships with over time, because I live in a very small town called Lima, Ohio, population 30,000. I don't know what it's going to look like, because I don't feel like I said, I didn't do Social Media Week Lima online because it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. If I were to put Social Media Week Lima online, it would not have the same vibe. Like Irene was saying, people don't go for the speakers, they go for that vibe that's at an event. So it has to look different. I know I think they need to have a focus and change it up a little bit. I don't know. Maybe they'll do something amazing. I'm sure they have a talented, amazing team, but it's not the same.
Doesn't it seem like it's a natural fit though for them to be able to do it, or to at least put the resources into creating something, like you said, that's different and unique? And yeah, okay, maybe they don't have a plan right away.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Yeah, create something, because they
need it, right? They'll show the way to others who probably less experienced in the whole.
Yeah, I'm sure they can. I'm sure their team, they're amazing at creating networking events. I honestly say that their event is one that really nails like networking opportunities and creating those magic moments. So I'm excited to see what it would look like online. I can't visualize it being the same currently, but I'm excited to see how they create it, and I'm always there to support it because I love their event and love all the team that works there.
You've got a very unique view of that, because I grew up in a very small town too. I know exactly what that feels like. I know exactly what it feels like to live in a small town, and just really you can't wait to go to the big cities. And so if you go to the big city, which in a way is part of the joy of it, sure, there's great things to talk to, and sure, you can have coffee with your mates, but there's it's an adventure. It's the atmosphere of it, isn't it? And you can't
get to San Diego in February when you're in Ohio in February where it's freezing and you're just looking forward to the weather and some sunshine. Yeah.
Feel free to keep commenting, Julie. I'm interested in your thoughts here. There is a discussion that it's not even going to be online. I don't even know what that means.
Judy worked for SME doing their social, so she's got a little insider stuff. I've heard the rumblings. I'm connected with some of the people that have worked there, but yeah, I'm excited to see what they do.
But picking up on that, Judy Fox, I'm really excited because look at what we're achieving here. I'm just a guy in Melbourne, Australia. I live an hour from the city, and I'm running this whole thing off my PC. But look who we got. Like, we got the whole world.
Did you go to Click, Engage, Convert, by the way, Keith?
Sorry?
Did you go to Click, Engage, Convert in your hometown, Melbourne.
When was that?
It's been the past 2 years, so not 2020, but the year before and the year before that.
I do remember
Lauren Bartley.
Jay Bear came out, didn't he?
Lauren Bartley puts it on. I'll have to connect you to. She puts it on.
I think she lives in Geelong. Oh yes, I know exactly who you're talking.
Yeah, I've seen the event. Yeah.
Just to set some context, we had 100 days here where we had a curfew at 8 p.m. Couldn't leave the house. 1 hour of exercise. $200 fine if you didn't wear a mask. Cops with drones in the air fining people for going shopping, right? And I'm taking an extreme view because we solved it. 20 days in a row, 0. We did it, but it was hard. It was really hard on a personal level to not see your mates, not be able to do things that you love doing. So what I want to pick up on, let's start where we are. Judy, what would you like to see more of in 2021? And then I'll backtrack and tell your story and ask the other questions in reverse.
What do I want to see more of? I think it's what everyone's been talking about so far. We want the networking. We want to connect. I love that Jessica during this pandemic has had some game nights.
Yeah.
And thank you for inviting me to the last one. I just couldn't make it. But that is, we need to smile. We need to have some fun. We don't really need to learn more. We need connection over learning. I think a lot of us know what we need to do already. We just need the connection. We need the support right now to do some of the hard stuff that some people who are trying to put content out there, it's not easy. If you don't feel good to put content out, you actually need better feelings.
A couple of times that Doyle has called me, says, mate, I'm really worried about you because, you could turn into a bit of a zombie because you have to be inside 23 hours a day and there's like a cop on every corner. I'm exaggerating to make a point, but the point is you can get a fine for leaving the house. So, of course, we didn't, and we solved it. Let's be very clear, we solved it. But it was very oppressive. And so it's very hard to be buoyant and bubbly when you've been stuck inside for 23 hours. It's really hard. So we obviously want to go back to where things were. But picking up on one of maybe the other questions, working backwards, what do you think makes an event engaging and fun and makes you feel like being a bit more buoyant? Is there a trick to playing online even if you can't go outside? Got your own doll.
Bobbleheads. Hey.
Jessica made this for me. I was like, I have to put it. I see it every day on my desk, and I think Jessica. And then I wear my shirt that's now the opposite color. You can tell I have an outfit for work. But she was talking about. I feel like I'm just gonna be saying what Jessica was talking about, but. When you make things personal, you're memorable. When you make things anything, I just spoke at Vid Summit and I gave everyone a Fox that was part of, and not everybody, but anyone I ran into that was part of the summit that I saw in person, because we did film some of it in a studio. So the videographer gave him a Fox. So it's just really fun to have things like this.
I'm going to change my name to something plush.
Yeah, you gotta have something.
Do you need a plushie? There's
Doyle
giraffe.
or Bueller
Doyle
just
giraffe.
doesn't convert to plushness. I don't know.
Look, it's very, very important that we're talking like this because what you've said, we are feeling it now. Separate to the idea that a year ago we might have talked about the idea of online variations, a hybrid, so to speak. We're now starting to feel the real weight of, I can't go. Social media marketing world might not be on next year. I'm still trying to get my head around that. It's been on every year since about 2009, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. 13 years or something. It's probably one of the biggest events in the marketing calendar in the whole world. Yeah, everyone's heard of it. And to think that it might not be on.
But if I may, one interesting thread that I've sort of heard throughout from all of the guests is that, we all need a Fox.
Now I'm in trouble.
Yeah, I want a Fox. Mail them to Australia. Okay, we'll send them a bunch for you. The sort of a common thread that we've seen from all the guests today is that we're looking for a new normal. And I'm kind of a proponent on the other side. I think we can have both. I think
we can have both.
New normal means that we've sort of enabled that capability so that we can connect with our audience remotely, and not necessarily because if we have another COVID or pandemic or whatever, but just because we've sort of made that switch. We've enabled that ability to say, hey, look, we can connect. I'm in Australia, Keith's Australia. Irene, you're in the
wherever
Connecticut. Jessica, where are you actually from? And Judy, where are you guys from?
I'm Virginia.
Virginia. And Jessica?
I'm from Ohio.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. You did say that. But anyway, we can connect remotely, and why wouldn't you? So to me, a new normal includes this ability to be able to do it. It includes businesses being able to say, let's do this now. We can connect. I can connect my audience anywhere around the world, on demand, on location, anytime, anywhere, any place. And to me, that's so powerful. And I would hate
for some
to
reasons, not just for an event or something that you're trying to promote, like having those, like Jody said, I'll do a game night where we just show up. I'm like, anyone that just needs a human connection, we'll just play a game, and we play games like just to connect and just for no other purpose. You don't want anything else out of it, just to show up and build that human connection. I think brands need to look at it in that way too. Like you said, just to show up and be there for one another, because everybody's going through something.
So are we going to see more of this then? Are businesses and personalities going to engage this more in the future as well?
I think so. Yeah. I was going to add that one of the things I've been telling a lot of my clients is public conversations more easily convert to private conversations. If people can trust you to have public ones, and they see how you're replying, how I'm talking with, all of you right now, like I could just name all your names, but the point is, we don't realize the power of that. It is so trust building to know this is probably how I'm going to show up privately. I mean, me and Keith have been exchanging 1,000 messages, and he understands I will talk a lot. I'll be like sending gifts of myself at Jessica's event.
Wait, did you say gifts or GIFs?
I say gifts.
No, I said gifts.
I think I'm the only one in the world that calls them GIFs.
Yeah,
that's okay.
No, you're not the only one, Keith.
But I think what we're doing here is really, really powerful. It's really democratizing the content and making it real. Like, I live in Melbourne, and sure, there are people from Melbourne that we all know that have been to marketing world, and I should possibly go out and reach out to them. But the point is that a lot of the people I hang out with all the time don't live in my town, and I'm sure they don't live in Lime, Ohio.
Never know.
My kids, that's who I hang out with, Lima.
So the point is that,
or if I come and visit,
and when Judy stays the week with me, that's it.
The thing that I'm really interested in picking up on Robin's really great book is, we were talking about the difference between virtual events and live streaming. And the reason I wanted to pick up on this is that Judy had just said, by having the courage to come on this live stream, we now hear her voice. We now get to see her cute fluffy toy. We now get to hear the video gig she did. And she can say all of those things in the context of a real event, a real show, a real conversation, which is so much harder to do secretly as a DM. So live streaming is a courage thing, really. You're just turning up, put on the webcam, turn on the light, and talk. How does that differ from an event which has much more sort of bandwidth and much more sort of organization? I'll ask you, Judy, first. What do you think the difference is between a virtual event and a live stream?
So again, we're probably going to bring up Agorapulse like 30,000 times, but I was a part of their LinkedIn summit, and it was pre-recorded. So I feel like if I just had the two camps, what I've really experienced is the pre-recorded world and the live, like you are doing a live talk. Well, actually 3. And then I recorded in a studio. It's still pre-recorded, but it had a different feel to it because it had a full production studio feel to it. Kind of like I have a client right now that is working with TEDx for how to take their TEDx talks and make them those, not just the ones you see after the event is live, but how do you make that an experience where you hear everybody clapping? Like, I remember some of those events, I would get goosebumps from the class. I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about listening to a few of the TEDx talks. I'm like starting to sweat and be like, they're so good. But that is a powerful moment when you hear that clapping after the event, after that talk. And again, I don't have all the solutions, but I do know that the more powerful events that I've been a part of, one was Digital Nomad Summit. I spoke at that one, and I was live doing my talk with it, but it didn't feel like it was live streaming because it was in that Hopin platform and there was a lot happening, if you know that platform. And then I got pulled into like a breakout room where people who had questions after my talk, it felt like as close to the equivalent of being on stage. And then I had a lineup of people wanting to talk to me afterwards, which I was really excited that somebody wanted to talk to me.
Let me pick up on that. I'm going to put this in the show notes. This particular site is called Hopin2. What a clever name for a URL. Hopin.2. And Doyle and I have talked about this before, but you now have seen it. Tell me about how this works and why you loved it.
I just felt like it kind of was, and I've seen a few of these. I haven't been in a lot of them, but I've been in a couple, and I can't remember the names of all of them, but I've been in Hopin twice now. I just did Atlanta Startup Week in that platform, and it felt like the equivalent of walking down that hallway at Social Media Marketing World, where you get to pick your conference rooms, and then you walk in, and then there's some breakout rooms that you could go sit at a table that might be a table topic. So it kind of felt like as close to the equivalent of me making some choices as I was navigating this online event.
Did they make you an avatar? Like Inbound did that, where that you were like a little avatar and you could see the avatars going to different rooms and stuff? And
I was jealous of that. I was like, what? That's so cool. I want to be a fox avatar moving around. But no, they didn't do that. I feel like that's like next level.
That sounds like some gamification, right? Some game like being your own something, right? In that virtual reality. So I guess next step will be for all the great tech companies coming up with AR, VR kind of event environment. And again, right.
Let me pick up. I
think that's what Facebook is actually like moving into. They're starting their Watch With like show now that they're kicking off with what's his name? What's the rapper name? Anyway, they're starting a live show where it's like Watch With, but in the rooms that they've created, now you can watch a live show together with your community. And they're starting with this rapper I can't remember, but my kids would be yelling at me now his name if they were allowed down here.
We're not gonna tell them that you forgot.
But anyway, they're starting that because they've bought into Oculus and everything, and they were showing kind of how in 2019 during their their F8 conference, what that's going to look like, and with VR. And I really think that's probably what the next level, like you said, big tech companies, probably the ones you'll get to work with first, Irene, and then give us some play-by-plays on what to do and what not to do. But I think that would be the next level. So HubSpot had the avatars that you could see kind of showing up to your room and then asking questions and stuff. But I think that would be super cool for events that they can afford that, right? They can and do that. That's really cool.
I want to pick up on what you've just said there, and especially in the gamification context. Another very, very good way of building loyalty within customers and also generating leads is to create a report. It's coming up to 2021, and there's a really lovely report here which has 10 really key steps. I won't tell you through them all, but one of them was that
starring Keith Keller, I might add.
Okay, this one particularly, I've got a little bit of skin in the game, so I'm a bit excited. But the point is that they've said that gamification of the process is going to meld with social media. Exactly what we're doing here. This is a bit of a game. We've had people on, talking heads, but I've added some images. I've got a banner at the front. I've got a little ticker on the bottom. I've got a little thank you at the end. I'm going to record it. It'll be fast and it'll be funky.
I just want to win the prize at the end, Keith.
Well, that's right. What do you want to win? What do you want to win? You want to win a fox.
Show me the money. Show me the money.
The big one.
Chocolate Johnny's game.
When do I pick a vowel? I want to pick a vowel. It's my turn.
Yeah, but I mean, I think what we're talking about here is how to make events fun how to make events interesting. But the question I really want to ask, talking about, say, Agorapulse, is they've had an event with pre-recorded content and on-demand content. How do you think that concept compares, as for a company, to running a report, say like Talkwalker and HubSpot, or about the top trends? I know that that's generated a lot of emails but hasn't had any conversations. What's the use case for running an event over simply just running a report, something like this?
Well, a report is boring, right?
And
It
it's
means I have to actually
two-dimensional.
read
Yeah.
it, and there's so many of those out there that just okay, yeah, I'll get your report, whatever, just stop.
But there's no
stop sending
buy-in,
me
there's no
emails.
skin in the game, there's no engagement.
Yeah, it just it's a moment in time that you kind of download it. You might read it in the next 10 minutes, and if you don't, well, you're not going to see it for weeks until you kind of clear out your tabs or whatever. Maybe that's me, I don't know.
That's
But-
what you just send to your boss afterward. All the social media managers that are like in it, and then they watch people talking about like trends and what's happening, and then they hear it and they're like, "Yes, that's what I've been trying to tell my boss." They get the report and they're like, "See, it's facts. It's on paper. It's printed with some names under it."
The reason I'm mentioning it, especially in this context, is that events, say for instance Agorapulse, the really cool summit, Social Pulse Summit, if you want to go and check this out if you haven't heard of it, 1 day full of content and 30 days on demand content, watch at your leisure. That's a big event. That's a lot of effort. I'm just wondering, is the effort of the engagement the big game, the big win? Because you're talking about churn, you're talking about loyalty. I'd imagine that having much more loyalty based on engagement would have to be a big factor rather than a report. Doyle said the report is boring. I really want to play out this idea because the reports are very common, and I've been in a few of them. We've all been in a few of them. We've all downloaded them, and they're not that hard to do. But events are quite hard to do, and I'm trying to juice up the idea that are events worth the extra effort? Do you think does it take the engagement up a notch?
Well, I was just going to say the report is static. It's not moving. It's not a human being talking. And then just my experience, again, being on Agorapulse, if Agorapulse is going to do a roundup of all the marketing trends compared to their event, I mean, I spent hours on their site on agorapulse.com because I was consuming the event through their platform and then through their...
Very good. Yeah.
So they kept it on there. And so whatever, I was like hours and hours like consuming content, and now I got to consume Twitter. And I'm like, what? I didn't even know all these things about Twitter. So basically they're literally just, they've kind of gamified it as much as I think they could at this point to gamify prizes and make you want to be on the leaderboard. I mean, I have FOMO, and I knew I would never even be on that Twitter leaderboard because I was like, I barely tweet. But I was like jealous. I was like, oh, I want to be on that. How do I get 80?
One thing I didn't know, and I apologize for not doing the research, but I didn't realize that the event was actually streamed through the site itself. That's genius. It's streamed through the site itself, not an independent site like Zoom or Hop Into. You actually had to go to the site itself to watch the content, which means, as you said, Judy, you were on the site for hours and hours.
Creating a username and password with your email.
Yes. I had to sign in to Agorapulse and become like a member of Agorapulse.
So that win there, that's got to be better than, as you said, a static report, which you download one time and you get a random email address. There's no buy-in at all, is it?
And in the report, Keith, right, you can always reach out to the authors, right, to those contributed to the report, and I do it sometimes, but it's an extra effort. You have to find this email, and you always person is busy with their day lives, and you cannot all these hurdles, right, the engagement goes down very quickly, whether with the event, in my opinion, right? You can get to talk to those who worked so hard to put this report together. Now it's their time to shine and their time to share with the world what they found out.
I think it's come from like more of sort of that sales mentality, like the gift. The report is a gift to kind of get people interested in what you do, and it's sort of an entry point where you get their email address, and then you'll bombard them with like 30 emails afterwards about the report or about, hey, let's book a time in my calendar kind of thing. But I think we're seeing an evolution of that too. It's like it's no longer just a report. I've seen some where it's been sort of a report plus a webinar and
video.
Honest,
that's what we did.
Yeah, but the webinar was audio, or it was a little bit of visual, a screen share, but it was so boring. And I don't mean any disrespect to them, but it wasn't an event. It was just, let's just slap on this webinar onto a report, and it's like, oh god, that was like a terrible combination, because they're not looking at it as a long-term event, as an experience. They're just saying, oh, let's do this because we can, I guess. I don't know.
I did last year, getahead2020.com. That's still my URL. It's still live. So, and it was the report download, like you said, but with a how-to. And then it was a recording, a webinar that you can still go back and replay, like getahead2020.com. But then I also did a collaboration. So I reached out to others, and I do this every year, to where they would submit their predictions for the next year and a video, and then I put together the video, which is streamed live, and then the report with their nuggets. So then it's a collaboration. So everybody, then sharing that's included in it. So it goes to all of our communities, and it's kind of like a shared resource of all of our findings. Which has still been super successul because of the collaboration efforts of it.
Yeah. So
I think I'm still planning to submit. It's open still.
You got until Friday. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I thought.
But that's interesting, because you've sort of created it not just as a finite static event. You've created into a dynamic experience. And
however you want to read it or consume it. So it's like providing access levels at however you want, right? But yeah, it was so you could tune into the webinar.
Did anyone here go to Zoomtopia?
Well, I'm sorry?
Did anyone here go to Zoomtopia?
It sounds like a cool name.
I know that you did, Keith. I know you've been there.
So Zoom, this is taking this up a notch because they're a big company. Zoom created a virtual island, which they called Zoomtopia.
I feel like I've been there all 2020, but yeah.
I'm on Zoomtopia.
So what they did was, when you logged in, you had really 4 choices, 4 villages, if you like, 4 villages on the island. So you went to a village that was the live recordings that were done that day, with keynotes, with Mark Cuban spoke. And then you had a second village, a room, if you like, where someone else collated all the speaking from last year's conference, like a library. And then you had the third village, which was right at the top, where you went to the cafe, and there was like an eatery, and they sort of simulated an eatery where you could just hang out and go, hey, did you go to that Mark Cuban keynote? Wasn't that good? What did you get out of that? And you were chatting like you were in a cafe, right? I'm exaggerating to make a point, but this was the essence of the idea. And then right down the bottom, as a favor to their sponsors, they had this, that I know they do this at social media marketing. Well, they gave everyone a passport and said, you've got to go and get your stamp from every one of the contributors, the sponsors. And if you get a full passport, you win a prize, right? So that encouraged you to go to the sponsor room or the sponsor village, like going to Bali, say. If you went to Bali, there's 4 little villages. And so we went to Bali, and we went and did the dolphin tour, which was the cafe, and we went to such and such and did the surfing tour, and that was and so what they did was they created the experience that you are on holidays and a very cool island in 3D. Now, I'm exaggerating this to make a point, because I'm really thinking it should have been a bit better, but the point is, the idea was they came at it from an experience. There was things to learn, and there was things to do, and there was people to know, and there was people sponsoring, which every event has. But they did it in such a dynamic 3D animated way that it was very, very interesting. So, and guess what? I'm talking about it months later. So it worked.
It worked.
Yeah. So I don't even know who spoke.
Are you sure they're not paying you, Keith? Is this not a sponsored message?
Well, look, I'll be happy to take their content.
Because I heard this story 2 times before, Keith. Okay, if you haven't noticed. But
yeah, really. We know you're getting some money.
The drinks that you were making on the islands because you got to make them at home, you know, where you're going, and that's what the magic moment, your vacation there. You know?
Yeah, well, we're trying to stimulate that, and I know it's hard. I know it's hard to simulate it, and it's,
cool.
but we're all trying in this sort of this COVID period to do this. I know we've been chatting much more than actually we're coming up to the 2-hour mark now. I want to give you all permission to go if you need to.
Yeah, I'm going to put the kiddos
to
bed, but I'll still keep listening as I'm doing it. So
yeah.
thank you so much.
How can we contact you, Jess, if you're going to go?
I'm sorry?
How can we contact you?
Oh, yeah. So I'm Jessica Phillips online, Jessica with a K. On Instagram, it's Relationship Marketing Jessica. So
okay, no worries.
Thank you guys.
So if you're going to go, no worries. Thank you. We're using the hashtag Wisdom Wednesdays lives. Feel free to tweet about that. I might even create my own leaderboard. I quite like that idea.
Yeah, I'll do a screenshot real quick.
Yeah.
Everybody's
with success. Yep.
There we go. All right. Bye, guys.
So that gives me really a great chance now to really hone in on you, Judy, because I'm so fascinated with what you're doing. And the piece of the pie that I specifically want to talk to you about, which I hadn't talked to the others about, is this idea of LinkedIn as part of this story. You know, LinkedIn is now reaching the 2020s. It's a little bit behind, but it's starting to become quite funky. And I know Doyle's got LinkedIn Live, but so many of my mates haven't. Can you teach us or tell us what's the thing with LinkedIn Live? Why is it so important, and how do you get it?
How do you get it? It's this elusive creature. I think it kind of can make sense from the product perspective that they put a gate there that not everyone can just decide to go live. I mean, even when I look at some platforms, not to bring up all of a sudden TikTok, but TikTok has a gate that you have to have a certain number of followers before you get access to live streaming on TikTok. You have to get to 1,000 followers, which is actually a pretty reasonable number. But I feel like having a bit of a gate there is something that LinkedIn wanted to do, probably from hey, we're a professional business site. We don't want somebody getting on here and doing something that's pretty bad, if that makes sense. So they want to check out one of your videos, and preferably it's a video on LinkedIn. So I think, number one, if you have the ability to go live on any show on LinkedIn that's not your show because you don't have LinkedIn Live yet, that is a very powerful thing to do.
Wow. Okay, Doyle, we've got to do that. Doyle's got LinkedIn Live. He applied 4 times. He'll have a lineup of people, and we can charge for that. We can go, okay, you can come on my LinkedIn Live, and that will be I'll have a lineup of people. But the thing that I'm fascinated by is you've said that you've got 5 million views on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a thing, 700 million users. How did you do it, and what's the secret to really engaging on LinkedIn?
I love the quote, give what you want to get. If you want to get the 5 million views, it doesn't mean I'm giving people 5 million views, but I did go out and give, I don't know how many times I've commented, engaged on other people's content to get replies, likes, and comments back. So for example, I probably gamify my own content, whether I realize it or not. I watched that TED Talk about gamifying everything, gamifying life. And one of the things I think about is if I want something, and if LinkedIn values conversation, and if LinkedIn values the first hour of conversation, because there has to be some metric that tells LinkedIn, hey, we need to show this to more people. This is a really freaking popular post. Yeah. Well, that first hour it is important. I will not deny that first hour is important. So anyone who likes and comments, the moment they like and comment, I try to reply, and then I go to their content, I open up their tab, and I like and comment back on them right that minute. So it's this immediate circle of, it's a bit of a gamification, because my brain is I'm not forcing them to like and comment on me. I'm not in telling them this is what's going to happen, but it's like I give a micro, I don't know what it's called, a oxytocin content strategy hug, where I turn back around and I show up back for them because they showed up for me.
Yeah, good. That's good. So it really is a reciprocity. Give what you want to receive.
Yeah, or give
That's excellent point. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Mhm.
Well, and
No
people
wonder you're
do
so
take
LinkedIn famous.
well, people take for granted that, and I feel like I've never shared that before, that I'm like, that's a trick, but it's not I'm not tricking it. It's real. Like, I do it for real. And I feel like whether I tell people I'm doing it or not, they know that that's like, oh, I'm an early commenter on Judy's post. And I don't know if that's clicking, where they are literally saying, if I'm an early commenter, then she'll reply, like, and comment and go to my content.
You're sort of training people to say, look, you'll be rewarded.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, don't tell anybody. I'm just kidding.
What are your thoughts on LinkedIn, Doyle and Irene? I don't use it that much, probably need to use it more, but what do you think of it?
I mean, it's a good tool. You need to kind of use it appropriately. And as Judy's saying, you have to use it to connect with people. It's not just sort of to spew your stuff out there, because there is a lot of that I found. And there's a lot of, okay, let's all jump on this post and, you know, like and link and all that kind of stuff too that goes on behind the scenes. So I think if you're genuine about it, if you're actually going to produce good content, go out the extra step and connect with people there too. Like, comment on theirs, watch their lives, you know, ask to perhaps to be on their live stream as well. But you can't just do it as a sort of a one-dimensional type thing where you go and you post and whatever. It has to be much deeper than that.
Yeah, okay. Yep, I totally agree. And Irene?
Yeah, and in my career, I had two personas on LinkedIn. I worked for many years for IBM, so that was one part of my journey, right? And that you sort of felt at the time. Now it's all shattered. All this kind of, yes, business versus what is it, non-business persona. Now we're authentic, look at us live streaming and all that. But 5 years ago, 7 years ago on LinkedIn, you would go there to connect, to find out what people are doing, right? It was more static. Back to your point, like that report.
Like I joined LinkedIn, I think it was like 2006 or 2007. And then like Judy does an amazing job. I don't know how long you've been on it, but not that long. And
2009.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
So there have been some people that it's like they just signed up and they have like whatever 50,000 followers. It's like, what?
I did go. I only had 2,000 followers. Well, not only, but I had 2,000 followers when I was 2018. And then it just, in 8 months, it was like I'm at 30 something thousand.
So is this, did you deliberately decide to do that and you deliberately kind of put an action plan in place to do that? Or did it just sort of suddenly climb up the charts?
It's, how do I say this? I was blogging, I was doing content. My first post on LinkedIn is 10 years old. So I was doing content, like written word, not videos. I do have some videos on YouTube that are well over 10 years old. They're really bad, by the way, but they're out there. I laugh really hard when somebody brings one of them up and I'm like, you should leave up your crappy stuff. Like, or you're early. I won't call it crappy.
Inspirational for others, right? Who's starting. So seeing other crappy stuff is really, really wonderful and exciting.
If you want some inspiration, Judy, go and watch Gary Vee's first episode of Wine TV.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it.
He did 1,000 and he got really, 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 really good. But when he first started, he was just in a t-shirt in sort of like in the storeroom.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere. And so I got traction up to I had a very viral piece of content in 2012 that got over 7,000 shares.
Oh,
wow.
So that to me was like, I know what I'm doing, but that was 2012. And then here comes the bad part of my story. Not bad, but I went through a pretty big financial family crisis, you know, basically crap hit the fan. Am I allowed to get serious? But I actually went silent on all social media for 4 years, except for LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the only one that I felt like I can maintain my professional world. I shut down Facebook. I mean, I didn't log out. I didn't comment. I didn't do anything for 4 years on any platform except for LinkedIn.
Yeah. Because life gets in the way sometimes, doesn't it?
Life gets hard. I consider that period of time in my life rebuilding from like the studs, like taking down your whole house. Your whole house is gone. And it literally was. I literally started my life over at 38 with what I had in my car and my kid. And I had built up a whole life. You know what I mean? Like I had the 4-bedroom house and all this kind of stuff. And I just started all over.
Wow. Well, glad you made it back.
Yeah. So no, I mean, it's been an interesting journey, and LinkedIn was a huge part of it, because how did I network to the next opportunity? How did I get the next contract? How did I have my own business through this kind of tumultuous period of time? It was, I can focus on business. Like I can't focus on all the drama and do everything else, but I can focus on business. I can do that, and nothing in business is going to hurt me. Like that's the mindset I had. So, which is business can hurt, but.
Yep. In the past few years, Judy, LinkedIn grew also, right? It used to be prominent. Now it's off the roof, because I am a new startup this year, actually, before the pandemic, few weeks before. Okay, I started my channel on YouTube. I am posting on LinkedIn because this is Technology Talks. So lots of people on LinkedIn, right? So that said, LinkedIn right now is the prominent place to be for newcomers, because this is my second, like you said, the second wave on LinkedIn. I'm entrepreneur, singlepreneur now, met wonderful friends over here we see. So it's a fantastic platform to actually get to know people and let people get to know you. So any tips there for those who may be re-entering the world or want to start something new there? How do they start?
Well, the very first thing that I probably already said, but go show interest in people you would love to get their interest back. If I wanted to stay connected to all of you, I would connect right now with all of us. Like that's the whole point of LinkedIn is you can move from one platform to another. And I did all tag each of you in my LinkedIn story. So LinkedIn has stories now. So just FYI, when you get your notifications, I tagged you in the story. So do
you find you're spending a lot of time on LinkedIn? Like how much time would you spend a day, a week? Has it gone up? Has it stayed the same? Just curious, the involvement.
So because I run a business called LinkedIn Business Accelerator, I'm on LinkedIn a lot, but for myself, I have my master's degree in business sustainability, and it includes environmental, but I lean into the business sustainability. And I post maybe once every 3 weeks. And I know that sounds like to some people that's insane. Like LinkedIn, you have to be posting all the time to be relevant. No, I'm getting anywhere from 10 to 20 to 30K views on my content by posting just 3 times, maybe 3 times a month, max 2 times a month.
Yeah, it's got to be what's right for you and what kind of content you're providing, right? There's no universal rule for everyone. Depends what you have to say. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So for Doyle, if I'm thinking for myself and how I keep my business sustainable, I create what's called a visibility resistance line in my platform. And I have, it's like going to the gym. I know exactly what steps I need to do to make sure that I maintain my business visibility, that I can attract and get clients. And my year has been amazing. Like it's kind of hard to, I know it's been kind of a tough year for a lot of businesses, but I really am grateful that I had been building this. So,
One thing I want to pick up on, and Irene has talked a lot about, she shared privately to me, that L'Oreal did a LinkedIn event. Those 2 words would never have occurred to me in the same sentence. L'Oreal on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So what they did was L'Oreal did an event on LinkedIn. So let me decode there. What is a LinkedIn event? And have you heard of this case study? And if not, Irene can probably allude to it. Why would someone run an event on LinkedIn? And what does that actually even mean?
First of all, the events on LinkedIn are being promoted by LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn has actually started to include events in their newsletter that they're putting out to millions of people.
I got one this week.
Yep. So LinkedIn is actually promoting your event. Number two, when people search for your name now, they're going to find Judy Fox and whatever events I've spoken at in the past and I'm speaking in the future. So LinkedIn is starting to connect your name to events because they're seeing it as powerful, right? Like,
This is a great point. Yeah, that's amazing.
So if you're in the lineup of any event out there, it is extremely powerful. And then the next thing is it's really nice now that you can see who's attending, who is joining. They're creating chats below the event. So it's just like here, we can see what people are saying in the live stream, but also before the event. There's a comment and area and a conversation area. And then the last thing I'll say is LinkedIn leveled up one more step, which was something people really wanted, was the ability after the event for the people running it to get everyone's email, to get everyone's ability to reach out to them afterwards, even if you aren't directly connected to them, to get their email. So that is probably the biggest thing LinkedIn just updated, because that was a big push. Like, I need to know who was interested, said they were going to attend, even if they didn't attend, and you still can get everyone's interest. And that's thousands of people sometimes.
No, that's amazing. I remember Nightmare before that in IBM. Imagine that, the conference of 20,000 people, it grew to 60,000 people. And making sure all these after follow-ups and all that, that was Nightmare. That was not easily managed. And this is tremendous. Speaking of networking, networking at LinkedIn, I love it because you're immediately checking out what people did, what they did in their career, what they do now. So this is fantastic. It's really becoming this professional social network with this additional feature. Amazing. Yeah.
Hopefully it won't be too much like Microsoft.
What do you think, Doyle? We've chatted. We did a whole 14-part series called Live Streaming Decoded, where we pulled apart all the live streaming options available at that time. And we did a Facebook group and we did an Eventbrite page. What do you think of the idea of being able to get a LinkedIn event and get the names afterwards? That sounds like a pretty big boon.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you've seen like third-party tools kind of engage that earlier, like Eventbrite. We ran a few tests rather, where you can connect a virtual live stream type event through that. So LinkedIn is obviously seeing it as a great capability. It sounds like I actually set up a webinar I had last week as a LinkedIn event. I didn't kind of leverage it as best as I could. I just kind of wanted to see how it works. So I'll probably do that coming up as well. So yeah, I mean, fundamentally, you want to be able to continue that relationship or continue that conversation rather in any tool that you have. I mean, you have to be respectful of the people and the tools and that sort of thing. You can't just use it to spam people to death or that sort of thing. So you have to be smart about how you use these tools. And create it as a starting point for a conversation. You're not there to sell. You're not there to pitch. You're there to talk, to convert, to connect, and to discuss. So I think that's important, that we take what we have, we use it appropriately, and then you can continue that conversation down the road.
Well, look, we've been going 2 hours. Why don't you take a little bit of time, Judy, to wrap up and answer this question maybe to finish off. How can you make your events more engaging? What can we do in 2021 to make these events more fun and more human? And then tell us all about how we can find you.
I mean, I'm into the world of, I'm loving the idea of to gamify. Like, how can you gamify an event? How can you turn it into a scavenger hunt? Like, I'm just spitballing here, like I have not been to a scavenger hunt one, but imagine if there were things that people could hide on their profile or hide somewhere in their content strategy. And I just don't know, like something that's kind of fun that forces people to go to other people's profiles that are part of the event. And I don't know what that looks like, but it sounds like fun to me. I don't know, get everyone to wear ears, like fox ears. I don't know. I love the virtual reality part of it, any kind of breakout room to have that networking. It's not just freaking learning. Like I keep telling people, I was like, I think with the pandemic, our brains are fatigued. We're just done.
We're just
like,
full up.
I don't know what you want me to learn right now, but it's not happening.
Yeah, I love how you put that we're not there necessarily to learn. It's more to be inspired and to connect, really.
Mm-hmm.
And just feel better, right? Feel good. Yeah. That's the most powerful, right? Yeah.
Well, we're going to keep doing more of these. I wanted to just introduce the topic. This is the first one. And if you haven't heard of this before, this is a show called Wisdom Wednesdays, which is Wednesdays at 7 p.m. in the Eastern States. And it's Thursday in Australia, but we're doing them regularly. We have a Facebook group. We have a Twitter page dedicated to this now, or a hashtag at least, and we're doing them on YouTube. Big hello to Julie for posting on YouTube today. I wanted to thank Doyle and Irene so much for being such a wonderful friends for me, and such an inspiration. It was Irene's idea. Do you want to just have a bit of a wrap up of what we've talked about in the whole 2-hour period, and then we'll go and have some lunch?
Are we having lunch at your place, Keith?
You can, just jump on a plane. The airports are open. I'll meet you there.
Yeah, no, look, it's been a fascinating discussion, and thank you, Judy, and thank you, Irene and Keith, as well, and our previous guests, for coming on the show and just talking about it. And to me, I think we've got a tremendous opportunity to be able to see how can we actually use this as a foundation for connecting more people around the world. And to me, that's where the power comes from. It's, can we connect? We are right now connecting to people around the world. We're conversing, we're talking, we're doing all kinds of things. And can we continue that forward for business? Absolutely. But we kind of need to follow the guidelines of Judy, Irene, and Keith, and Jessica, and everybody else out there to say, here's how you can do it, here's to test it, see what works, and go forward from there. So
Good. And if I may wrap up with one simple sentiment, we heard throughout our stream today that we all miss good events. We all miss physical presence, all that for sure, that's given. We don't have to, again, repeat this many times. Point is, there are so many boring physical events in the past. Horrible. Okay, money wasted. Okay, energy down the drain. You had to attend it. So let's not glorify the past. Okay, let's look at the future, because we will pick and create new experiences for us, because again, we are amazingly lucky to have this technology with us. Okay, let's embrace it and let's take it to 2021.
Look, I love what you've just said there. I love the idea that there was been boring events too, and that let's not worry about the past. Let's move forward and let's make some really great events as hybrids. We'll gamify. Everyone gets a fox. We'll put little ears on.
I've literally hid foxes at when I'm speaking on stage. They're hidden around the room, and I'm like, you have to find a fox. So you can tell I'm already ready to have something.
Ready. We're ready to do it. So let's gamify in the future. We'll run these again. These are called Wisdom Wednesdays, and we have them every week now. But thank you so much for coming on our show, Judy, and for having the courage to come on and tell your story. Not that you need courage, you love speaking like I do, but you're demystifying the process. So next week we're going to talk about a physical event that Joyce, who runs the Facebook group, went to, brave her, put a mask on, went to Asheville, North Carolina, and sat in a room with real people. She's going to talk about how that compares to this, but really the hybrid is what we're going to do from now on. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining in. I'll end the session there, and we'll see you later.
Keith, you're a wonderful host. You're wonderful. Yes. Let's keep safe and
stay awesome.
Let's do a GIF about that. Can you say that again?
Stay awesome.
Awesome.